Gone are the days when you could pack a suitcase, grab a US passport, and effortlessly settle anywhere in the world. In 2025, a quiet undercurrent is rising. Countries that once eagerly welcomed Americans are now subtly closing their doors, erecting invisible walls through stringent visa policies, exorbitant financial requirements, and a noticeably cooler reception. From the paradisiacal beaches of Bali to vibrant cities like Lisbon, Americans are confronting a harsh reality. We're no longer as welcome as before. Many have faced residency extensions denied, deportations, or been quietly forced to leave. So, which countries are discreetly showing Americans the door? And why can't even the world's most powerful passport change that? Let's dive in and find out. Number 1, Mexico. For years, Mexico has been a magnet for Americans seeking an idyllic lifestyle with low costs and pleasant tropical weather. But in 2025, the question arises, is Mexico still a haven for Americans? Or are shifting policies and a surge of expatriates gradually pushing Americans out of this nation? The biggest challenge Americans face in Mexico is the rapid influx of expatriates, particularly in hubs like Mexico City, Tulum, and Oaxaca. These areas are becoming victims of their own allure, with living costs, rental prices, food, and services soaring. This spike doesn't just affect foreigners, it's fueling resentment among locals. Are Americans unwittingly contributing to the problem? Alongside rising costs, local protests are mounting against the presence of foreigners. Many Mexicans feel Americans are encroaching on their communities, driving up rents and altering local culture. Meanwhile, the Mexican government is tightening visa regulations and tourist visa extensions, creating a tougher environment for those seeking long-term stays. Remote workers, in particular, face stringent scrutiny at customs, making visa applications and continued residency in Mexico more challenging than ever. Additionally, residential areas are cracking down on short-term rentals through platforms like Airbnb, resulting in a wave of evictions and fines for Americans violating these rules. This is forcing many to reconsider their ability to sustain a life in Mexico. Are Americans willing to accept being pushed out of their beloved locales due to these changes? The bigger question looms, is Mexico still a viable option for Americans in the future? With these ongoing shifts, Americans may soon realize the country is no longer the easy retreat it once was. Increasingly strict regulations and strong local opposition are making Mexico less appealing than ever. Number 2, Malaysia. For many Americans, Malaysia was once an enticing destination, thanks to its Malaysia, My Second Home long-term residency program, low cost of living, and stable environment. However, since 2021, and especially in 2025, Malaysia has significantly shifted its stance on immigration, making the pursuit of a new life there increasingly arduous. The core of this shift lies in tightened financial requirements. The MM2H program, which previously required a minimum monthly income of $2,500, now demands a stable monthly income of $3,000, alongside a bank balance exceeding 1 million Malaysian ringgit, over $230,000. Applicants must also prove they can withdraw at least 50% of this amount for major expenses like real estate, healthcare, or education. These new conditions have slashed residency applications by 90% in just 1 year, according to Malaysia's Ministry of Tourism. But financial barriers aren't the only deterrent for Americans. Malaysia is also cracking down on the informal labor market, which was once relatively lenient. Freelancing, running small businesses, or remote work without a valid work permit can now lead to immediate deportation. Surprise inspections at co-working spaces and service departments in Kuala Lumpur, Penang, and Johor Bahru have become increasingly common. Moreover, the social climate has undergone subtle but noticeable changes. The Malaysian government is vigorously promoting campaigns to protect local culture, imposing stricter regulations on public behavior, dress, and social media speech. Foreigners, including Americans, accused of disrespecting traditions or engaging in disruptive behavior, face the risk of deportation or residency extension denials. From a nation once open to foreigners, Malaysia is now reshaping its immigration policies to prioritize domestic populations and social stability. For those who once viewed Malaysia as an ideal refuge from turmoil in the U.S., 2025 delivers a clear message. Opportunities are no longer as accessible as they once were. Number 3, Spain. Initially, Spain captivated Americans with its Mediterranean charm, warm climate, and significantly lower cost of living compared to major U.S. cities. But by 2025, a more complex reality is emerging. Increasingly stringent administrative hurdles, taxes, and regulations are making the dream of living in Spain more elusive for Americans than ever. The first major barrier is visa policy. The non-lucrative visa, popular among retirees or remote workers, now requires a minimum monthly income of approximately 2,400 euros, with additional amounts for dependents. This not only challenges those with limited income, but also extends the application process to months, involving rigorous in-person interviews at consulates. Applicants unable to prove stable, transparent finances are often rejected outright with no chance to appeal. On the real estate front, Spain has changed the rules. Major cities like Barcelona, Madrid, and Valencia have imposed strict limits on foreign property purchases. Property transaction taxes have surged, and policies restricting foreign ownership in key areas aim to protect the market for locals. Americans who once easily bought apartments now face complex procedures and substantial extra costs. The crackdown doesn't stop there. Spain is aggressively targeting short-term rental activities like Airbnb, a sector many Americans invested in for additional income. In Barcelona, authorities have begun revoking rental licenses and imposing heavy fines on homeowners who fail to meet new registration and safety standards. As a result, those relying on rental income risk fines of tens of thousands of euros or are forced to sell properties below market value. Finally, social dynamics present an undeniable barrier. A subtle but growing anti-foreigner sentiment is taking root, particularly in areas where housing prices have soared beyond locals' reach. Small-scale protests and social media campaigns demanding cities back for Spaniards are gaining traction, creating an environment far less welcoming than before. These changes are transforming Spain from a dream destination into a bureaucratic maze, forcing many Americans to reconsider long-term residency plans. Number 4, Italy. Not every beautiful scene brings comfort, and Italy in 2025 is a stark example. Behind its dazzling piazzas and dreamy towns lies an increasingly complex legal and financial system that leaves many Americans feeling trapped after choosing to settle here. The elective residence visa, once seen as a golden gateway for Americans seeking a leisurely life in Italy, has become a labyrinth of near-impossible requirements. Applicants must now prove a passive income of at least 38,000 euros annually, excluding active employment income. The challenge isn't just the amount, but demonstrating that this income is stable, continuous, and fully legal in the eyes of consular authorities. Reports indicate that visa rejection rates in 2024 surged to 45%, a sharp rise from just 3 years prior. Even for those who successfully immigrate, the Italian dream isn't guaranteed a happy ending. Owning property in sought-after regions like Tuscany, Umbria, or Lake Como now comes with numerous restrictions: exorbitant transaction taxes, regulations on the proportion of housing allocated to foreigners, and stringent checks on housing standards. In some areas, foreigners are even required to prove long-term residency intentions rather than purchasing for speculation or vacation. Renting, a more flexible option, is no longer straightforward either. Long-term leases demand official registration with local authorities, valid housing permits, and liability insurance. Those engaging in short-term rentals without complying with new regulations face fines ranging from thousands to tens of thousands of euros. Beyond legal and financial hurdles, there are softer, less tangible barriers. A rising anti-foreigner sentiment in some regions, driven by over-tourism, skyrocketing housing prices, and fears of losing local identity. This leaves many Americans, despite investing time and money to relocate, feeling increasingly unwelcome. Italy's allure remains visually intact, but beneath its picturesque veneer, 2025 reveals a far colder reality for those hoping to find a second home here. Number 5. Thailand. For many Americans, Thailand was once an attainable dream. Low living costs, a relaxed pace of life, and a welcoming international community. But by 2025, those golden days are fading, giving way to a new reality where long-term stays are more complex than ever. The most significant change lies in visa policies. Previously, visa runs, leaving Thailand and returning to extend a 30 or 60-day stay, were common for those prolonging their time in the country. Now, border controls have tightened, with many denied re-entry despite holding return tickets and financial proof. Thailand's immigration office is rolling out electronic tracking systems, flagging individuals with frequent entries and exits, and placing them on a visa overstay risk list, which can lead to immediate border rejections. For those seeking long-term solutions, the long-term resident LTR visa seems like an answer. But the cost is steep: a minimum annual income of $80,000 or a $1 million investment in Thailand, plus $100,000 in health insurance coverage. These conditions are out of reach for most Americans hoping to retire or work remotely on a modest income. Beyond paperwork, the social environment in hotspots like Chiang Mai, Bangkok, and Phuket is shifting. Simmering tensions between locals and expatriates have flared due to skyrocketing rents, particularly in areas once considered local. Authorities have begun conducting surprise inspections of unregistered rentals and imposing heavy fines for violations related to illegal work, including seemingly harmless activities like online freelancing without a proper work permit. Culture has also become a more sensitive issue. Behaviors such as inappropriate attire at temples, filming without permission, or breaching traditional norms can now result in fines, deportation, or long-term entry bans. In 2024 alone, over 1,500 cases involved tourists and expatriates violating cultural regulations, a sharp increase from previous years. Thailand is no longer the carefree haven for those seeking a worry-free life. Instead, the country is sending a clear message: those who wish to stay must strictly comply, financially, legally, and culturally. Number 6. Costa Rica. Without bold declarations or abrupt decrees, Costa Rica is quietly erecting barriers that make the dream of settling there increasingly out of reach for Americans. Once hailed as the happiest country in the world, this nation is undergoing a subtle but effective transformation, targeting the waves of U.S. migrants that surged post-pandemic. One of the most noticeable changes is the tightening of visa requirements for retirees and remote workers. Gone are the days of proving basic income. Costa Rica now demands a minimum monthly income of $2,500, backed by concrete evidence of stable passive income. This rule entirely excludes applicants relying on savings or inconsistent income streams, a significant portion of Americans drawn to the country. The scrutiny doesn't end there. Costa Rican tax authorities are intensifying audits of foreigners, particularly those running small businesses, teaching online, or renting via Airbnb without proper declarations. A new campaign launched in mid-2024 dubbed Cero Tolerancia, Zero Tolerance, has led to a slew of fines, deportations, and asset freezes for tax regulation violators. Americans who once viewed Tamarindo, Jaco, or the outskirts of San Jose as their new home are now feeling a palpable pushback from local communities. Housing prices have surged 30 to 40% over the past 3 years, pricing native Costa Ricans out of their own neighborhoods. The inevitable response includes small-scale protests demanding restrictions on short-term rentals and tighter controls on property sales to foreigners. Some cities have introduced higher taxes for foreign homeowners to curb investment appeal. Ironically, in its effort to preserve pura vida, its pure, simple way of life, Costa Rica is becoming a place where Americans must tread carefully. Dreams of an affordable, nature-immersed, laid-back lifestyle are colliding with harsh realities: an increasingly rigid legal system, wary local communities, and escalating costs. While Costa Rica's door hasn't slammed shut entirely, crossing its threshold in 2025 is undeniably far less straightforward than before. Number 7. UAE. Who hasn't dreamed of a lavish life in Dubai, a city of skyscrapers rising from the desert, brimming with endless opportunities and a 0% income tax? But is the price of that dream truly worth it? By 2025, the UAE is no longer the lenient paradise it once was. The government is erecting invisible but formidable barriers to tightly control the influx of foreigners, with Americans making up a significant portion. One of the biggest hurdles is the stringent residency requirements tied to employment or personal finances. To maintain a remote work visa, you must prove a stable monthly income of at least $5,000, backed by transparent bank statements and a clear employment contract. Lose your job? You have just 30 days to leave the country, no exceptions. According to Gulf News, in 2024, the number of expatriates forced to leave the UAE due to job loss rose by 18% compared to the previous year. And if you think you can bend the rules by freelancing, think again. Working without a valid permit, even remotely online, can result in fines, deportation, and a re-entry ban. Numerous cases have been publicly penalized as examples, particularly in Dubai, where digital surveillance operates at a world-class level of sophistication. A blunt question arises: are you willing to sacrifice personal freedom for luxury? The UAE enforces strict cultural laws covering dress, public behavior, and freedom of speech. A misjudged social media post can lead to severe consequences, including imprisonment or deportation. In 2024 alone, over 300 foreigners faced penalties for violating public moral standards per official data. Living costs are no longer friendly either. Rental prices in Dubai rose by an average of 7% in 2024, with upscale areas like downtown and Palm Jumeirah seeing increases exceeding 12%. Ultimately, do you truly control your life in such an environment, or are you the one being controlled, every step, every thought? In the UAE, the glamour is real, but so is the steep price of existing within it, a reality not everyone is prepared to accept. Number 8. Greece. Many Americans once chose Greece as a new paradise, a land of beckoning blue seas, affordable living, and a slow-paced life promising tranquility. But in 2025, that dream is cracking piece by piece. The question for anyone planning to set foot here: do you truly grasp how rapidly Greece is changing? First, consider the Golden Visa program, once a wide-open path to residency for a €250,000 real estate investment. Now, in the most coveted areas like Athens, Santorini, and Mykonos, the minimum investment has doubled to €500,000. And even with that sum, long-term residency isn't guaranteed. The Golden Visa merely grants the right to apply, not a sure ticket to stay. It doesn't stop there. Popular tourist regions are cracking down on foreign property buyers. On some islands, local communities are pushing for residency quotas for foreigners, prioritizing native residents. Are you ready to invest hundreds of thousands of euros only to be denied residency because the area is over capacity? As for living costs, the harsh truth is emerging. Rental prices in Athens surged nearly 25% in 2024, according to Kathy Marini, while electricity, water, and fuel costs have climbed due to persistent inflation. Greece's affordable advantage is fading, making life increasingly precarious for those without strong, stable foreign income. Greek authorities have also tightened visa controls. Residency visas now demand highly detailed financial documentation, mandatory health insurance, and a clear purpose for staying. Numerous Americans, even those who've purchased property, have been denied residency extensions for missing paperwork or failing to meet new requirements. Are you willing to sacrifice everything, money, time, and personal freedom, to chase a romantic illusion of Mediterranean life? Or will you end up trapped in an increasingly complex and unforgiving legal system? In 2025, Greece, the beauty remains, but the opportunity for Americans to live an easy life here is dimming by the day. Number 9. Portugal. Renowned for its stunning beaches, mild climate, and relaxed lifestyle, Portugal was once an ideal haven for Americans seeking a new sanctuary. However, in 2025, the Portuguese government is making decisions that may force many Americans to reconsider their immigration plans. Imagine investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in real estate only to discover that the Golden Visa program, one of the easiest paths to long-term residency in Portugal, has been severely restricted. For starters, real estate investments no longer guarantee residency, and new regulations prohibit foreigners from renting properties without clear registration. Do you believe you'd be treated fairly while navigating these stringent rules? The cost of living crisis is another pressing issue. Popular cities like Lisbon and Porto, which have drawn many Americans, have seen rental prices soar by up to 40% in just a few years. This surge has left not only locals, but also expatriates who dreamed of an easy life in Portugal struggling financially. Can you afford a small apartment in Lisbon with rents skyrocketing? Or would you be forced to leave when the cost of living becomes unsustainable? Beyond rental woes, Portuguese authorities are tightening residency criteria for foreigners. Lawmakers appear to be responding to local discontent over the heavy presence of expatriates. Protests have erupted, with locals arguing that open-door policies toward Americans are creating inequality and driving up living costs. Could this frustration be fueling an anti-foreigner movement, particularly against Americans? And would you be able to stand firm in such a climate? So is there still a place for Americans in Portugal? It's not an easy question to answer. Despite the current challenges, Portugal remains a country of irresistible beauty and high quality of life. But with changes to residency policies, investment rules, and the real estate market, Americans must ask themselves, is the Portuguese dream a lasting opportunity or merely a trap set by the government and resentful locals? Number 10. Indonesia. Bali, the stunning island renowned for its beaches, breathtaking natural beauty, and vibrant culture, was once a top destination for Americans seeking a serene sanctuary in Asia. But in 2025, Bali and other parts of Indonesia are no longer the accessible paradises they once were. Is Bali, along with the carefree freedom Americans once found there, becoming increasingly out of reach? Indonesian authorities have been tightening visa policies, particularly targeting remote workers and long-term visitors. Previously, a tourist visa allowed easy visa runs to neighboring countries to extend stays in Bali with minimal hassle. Now, stricter limits on stay durations are enforced, and visa runs are no longer permitted. Are you willing to risk deportation for overstaying? It's a question many Americans must answer before deciding to remain. Moreover, Bali is no longer an easy place to live as the influx of foreigners has led to overcrowding and tensions with locals. The government and Balinese leaders have introduced tougher requirements for expatriates. Recently, Bali has pushed a high-quality tourist policy, meaning Americans and other foreigners must meet stricter income and visa criteria. Can you afford to meet the minimum income thresholds or navigate the rigorous documentation to continue residing? Additionally, rising cultural violations and disregard for local traditions have prompted Indonesia to crack down harder. Actions like filming in temples or disrespecting cultural norms can result in fines, deportation, or entry bans. In such a tense environment, can Americans maintain the freedom they seek, or will they face a hurried exit amid increasingly stringent restrictions? Ultimately, while Bali remains a beautiful destination, if you're chasing a life of freedom unburdened by rigid regulations, are you truly prepared to accept these changes? Can Indonesia retain its allure for Americans? Or will these shifts push them out, transforming Bali from a paradise into an inaccessible enclave? With all these changes and challenges unfolding, the critical question is whether Americans can still find easy places to settle. Countries like Mexico, Thailand, Portugal, and others are tightening regulations, making living and working there more difficult than ever. Will these nations maintain their appeal for Americans in the future? This content is intended solely for informational and analytical purposes, not to criticize any country or community. If you found this analysis helpful, don't forget to like and share it with friends. Comment below on which country you think will see notable changes in 2025. Subscribe to stay updated with our in-depth analyses of global social and economic issues.